This episode of Everything's Not Black and White is brought to you by LBB Edutainment, where culture strategy meets real human connection. Whether you need an engaging keynote speaker or hands-on leadership training, LBB Edutainment helps teams align their values and navigate real workplace challenges. Learn more at lbbedutainment.com or connect directly with Lachandra at 1-614-706-LALA. That's 1-614-706-LALA. Welcome to Everything's Not Black and White with your hosts, Lala and Brian. We're stepping into the gray area to uncover the unexpected perspectives and lived experiences you didn't know you were curious about.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. We are definitely traveling in the gray area today. We're expanding our lens because one story can look totally different depending on where you're standing. So our guest today has stood on a comedy stage, in a wrestling ring, and behind an esports mic, and pivoted his whole life along the way. Please welcome the master of the microphone himself, Flobo Boyce. Hey, Flobo.
Hey, welcome, Flobo.
Hands down the best intro I've ever gotten for a podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me to the program. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. We're so excited to have you. You know, we talk a lot about perspectives and really bringing people from different walks of life and backgrounds here so people can get an expanded experience learning about other cultures. So you grew up in a West Indian household in Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn in the house, where you said stability and a clear career ladder with expected lens for success. So tell us a little bit about the world and in what country is your heritage from, and then how did that define you both through your eyes and also your family's eyes?
Oh yeah, that's a very loaded question, but I love loaded questions. If you've ever seen the show Everybody Hates Chris, that was basically my life growing up. My parents, they came from Barbados in the 70s. This is the years before Rihanna, so no one really knew where it was until very, very recently. But that's always a fun time because, you know, you're in this, like, they say melting pot, but like, you know, it's a melting pot, but we appreciate each other in our personal space sometimes is really something we're really serious about. But you go in a subway, our personal space is like gone, and it's like different things are happening at once. And so I always felt like growing up, you got a taste of the world, being in the same classes with the same people, the same restaurants with the same people, you know, learning swear words in a dozen languages. That just kind of the vibe is being from Brooklyn. But the West Indian side, I do like that term. I know some people are rejected that term because they say, well, that's not really the Indies, and that's a name that was put upon that region. It could have been is more correct geographically, but I think there's a cultural, ethnic element to that. Growing up with a certain kind of food, a certain kind of way of looking at lives, the stereotype of having the 4 or 5 jobs is true. My mom had 4, my dad had 3, I have 6 or 7 now. Just being able to make sure your drapes are clean first before you invite people over. And you say good night when you enter a room. I mean, those things I use to this day. So it is kind of funny being dropped in like this giant patchwork that's America and Brooklyn, but having those sensibilities from the West Indian side is something I lived with my entire life.
Yeah, I love that because I actually grew up in Georgia, so I'm a Southerner, but it's very similar, sounds like to me, because it's everything that my grandma had. You know, she worked so hard to get. So we were sitting on plastic on the sofas. Like I never sat on my grandma's sofa ever with my bare behind. It was always a sheet cover over it or plastic cover or something that was never, you can't sit on it because this was the good furniture, right? This is the one that you take care of. And so I remember that we cleaned, I felt like all the time. And then my grandma also had a garden in her backyard. So we were always, you know, sowing and reaping and harvesting and all the things. So it was very much.
Can I jump
similar.
in here real quick to say, like, the kinship is actually there. My grandfather chopped sugar cane, and he worked in the South extra money from his extra money. There is a small community of Bayesian immigrants that were shipped to North Carolina to work the land. So it is a bit of a similar thing there between the American South and the West Indies.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably comes from both of us experienced the transatlantic slave trade, right? When they came over the Middle Passage, some went to the Caribbean, some came to the South. And so I think there's probably a lot of our cultural heritage we brought with us and continue to cultivate over time. And then we were able to continue to grow into America with our own culture, which is a very interesting place right now, right? So it's
To say
wild.
the least, yeah.
To say the least. So tell me about success. We were talking about a little bit, we introduced you. We said you've been on a comedy stage, you've been on a wrestling ring, you've been behind an esports mic. When you think about as a kid, what were some of the things that you actually wanted to do or that at least your parents and family wanted you to do? And then how did that turn out that you ended up doing these other very creative, cool things?
Well, you're gonna kick me off the show because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Power Ranger. That was as far as I thought I was going to save Angel Grove, and that had been it, right? And I took karate classes to train to be a Power Ranger. I would say I came up with a family that was very practical, very left-brained. My mom's a nurse, my dad's an electrical engineer, and so you got pushed to do careers like that. I mean, I know doctor and lawyer is kind of like the stereotype, but for me, my dad wanted to be a civil engineer. My mom is like, I don't care what you do, but make sure you like it. She didn't want to be a nurse, but there weren't enough opportunities for women that allowed her to leave. Because it was like either teacher, banker, or secretary, or nursing. So she picked nursing, went to Scotland, and I have a whole Scotland part of my heritage as well. So growing up, she was like, do something you love. I'm not sure what that is. And I kind of took that spark and I ran with it. So growing up, I did the whole finance program. I was in the finance school in high school, but I just fell in love with this summer internship the finance program had at my high school. And they put me in what was called the industrials now, having a media department of a bank, Citibank at the time, doing like their videos for like quarterly reports. And I saw media, what that was. There was a small time when I was a teenager, I thought about being in pictures, but like seeing there was a business industrious side to media was through this bank's media department. They didn't have to wear the suits. I mean, New York City is very conservative when it comes to their clothes and stuff for work. I live in LA now, we wear whatever. But back then it was like, wow, these are the cool guys. And I just took that and ran with it. Went to undergrad to learn broadcasting. And then I went to grad school to learn film because to talk about gifts and things that call you, the things that really gives you the good energy. And by the good energy, I mean, you can go to bed exhausted, but still with a smile on your face. They usually come to you. You don't go like and go, I wish I could did this. It's like the ones they seek you out and you go, this is what I'm going to do. And media entertainment was that for me.
Yeah. I love that. So it's so funny because we have so much in common already that is really interesting because I actually went to radio and television broadcast school in my late 20s and thought I was going to be the #1 radio personality in Atlanta, Georgia, which didn't exactly happen, but I loved every bit of it, right? It was so cool. And it's funny because I left Atlanta and moved to Columbus, Ohio. Then everything started blowing up in Atlanta where all the movies were being filmed there. The television shows were there. I was like, why weren't y'all there when I was there? What's up with that? Listen.
Yeah, she's gone? I bet.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I took it a little bit personally, right? Which is so funny. Yeah. So what prompted you to move from Brooklyn to LA? Let's ask that question first.
School. I went to undergrad in Florida first to do broadcast. And broadcasting television for me was a big leap because my parents wanted me to do more practical work. We're in New York City. We went to this country to go to the most industrious town for you to be here. And I was like, no, I'm going to the American South to go to college. And I got to go because it was dirt cheap. So I went to Flagler College. It's expensive now, but at the time it was $10,000 a year for private education. Yeah. So I knew that it would be cheap, so they couldn't say no. But I also knew that no matter how hard it was, I couldn't leave or transfer, right? Yeah. So it was a culture shock going from New York City to the American South. It's Florida, yes, but North Florida is very much Southern Georgia.
It's very,
culturally
that's exactly
speaking.
Correct. That is exactly correct.
Got a hard not luck. You're like, oh, I'm from New York. I'm cool. Like, what's that flag mean? I had no idea. So at the end of my undergrad, it was about 2007. There was rumblings that the economy wasn't doing well. And so I applied to grad school, this time for film. I said, well, if the economy is not going to be good for a year or so, let me go someplace that would allow me to like get my experience up, a new network of friends, a new job network. And Chapman University in Orange County, California was the only school that didn't ask for my portfolio up front. Oh, okay. They wanted a list of projects that I have done. And they said if they wanted to see it, they would ask for it specifically. So I had like 3 projects completed, but like 7 in progress. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing all these things. And the one they asked for, I already had done. So it was like cool. And I got to go as an editor. So I went understanding that entertainment was like a factory and the old steel mill was in LA. But I went under the guise of education because I knew if I went out there without a net and fell on my face, I would have to come back. And getting the permission to leave to do something like that and to come back without anything to show for it was like being the prodigal son for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So the answer is school, but it was like a whole network could go from one to the other.
Yeah, I completely understand that because that was me a little bit when I graduated high school. I decided to leave Georgia and move all the way across the country to Washington State. So like I was that same place, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make my mark out there. And then after college, I ended up moving back to Georgia only because I've missed my family so much, and I didn't realize how much I was gonna miss them, that I end up going back. And I'm grateful I did because I had 7 more years with my grandmother before she passed. So that was wonderful to be able to do that. But yeah, when you have these grandiose ideas about what your life and career is going to be, and then you have to shift, it sometimes throws you off your game for a little bit.
I just say I'm impressed with both of you because I went to college like 5 miles from where I grew up and where I currently live. So the fact that y'all could adventure out so far and do your thing, man, hats off to y'all.
Thank you.
Grass is greener because you probably paid off your loans because I haven't.
Facts,
The further you go, the more you pay.
Listen, exactly. The further you go, the more you pay. It's facts. Those are absolute facts. Yeah, that out of state tuition is no joke. Yeah, it is so true. So what I loved it, you carried a "Make Your Hometown Proud" sign when you left Brooklyn to move to LA. And so how did that East Coast perspective shift or hold steady for you once you were seeing the industry through a West Coast lens?
It's interesting. So the hometown proud came from undergrad, so the Florida time. I didn't realize this too because I'm from Brooklyn, so that's my hometown. It's big, but it might as well be like a farm because that's where I'm from. It was only when I got to Florida, it was the first time I met people that would say towns they were near. Oh, I'm from Gainesville. Where's that? Well, I'm actually from Alachua. What's Alachua? I have no idea. And so I used to like get mad. I'm like, yo, if you're from this town, put your name on the map because I was so jealous. Like my town has so many dots on that map. Barbra Streisand, Jay-Z, like where can I fit in?
Right.
And that's where I brought that. But coming to LA, and I know a lot of people from my hometown have made it out here. To me, it was very, very important that I kept being as direct as I can. I've learned to be nicer at things, but the one thing I didn't want to be is not, if I'm not feeling you or I'm not feeling a situation, to say it up front. And sometimes that's to my detriment. I always believe being respectful. I can't stand people who are like, I'm honest. And it's like, but if you're honest without tact, you're just being rude, right?
Exactly. Facts.
You want to be able to do that. But at the same time, that's something I always wanted to keep. So I go home to recharge that muscle because everyone's doing something creative. We kind of want support. So culturally, we have a tendency to be like, oh man, right on, brother, you're doing this play, or right on, or whatever. But every 18 months, I go home and be like, that play sucked. That shirt's off. I need that. I need that kind of roasting mentality to make sure I don't lose that edge because I want to be able to call things how I see. Perspective is important, especially when you go into comedy and you have to have a perspective. You just can't tell jokes anymore. You're not a machine. Comedy has shifted. The whole knock, knock, who's there, or take my wife, please era is done.
Right.
People go to a show, they want to be like, how does Flobo Boyce think about this?
Right.
And this is why every comedy album now is like uncensored, unleashed, because they want perspective. And so that to me is very, very important. So I live in LA. I've been out here almost 20 years, but I still consider myself a Brooklyn kid because I think of that first, of how I would say this if I saw this in my hometown.
That's really, really great. And you're absolutely right. One of my favorite comedians right now is Josh Johnson. And I love what he does on a regular basis. And it's like, and his mind is so sharp. Like his show is different every time you see him. And I'm like, wow, that takes a lot, but it's really about his perspective and how he's observing the world. So they're not like you said, it's not the knock joke kind of thing. It's just really observing the world and making that connection from his life to what is really happening in reality, which I love.
It's not only different, but he's on point with the topics. Like it could have just happened yesterday, and it's in the show the very next day. That's
wild.
Amazing.
That's wild.
It is scaring a lot of comics because it is an antithesis of what that was. It was you have a bit, you craft it for so long. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan. I think more people should do that. I'm not trying to say I'm a hater, but it's interesting to see when someone is breaking a particular mold. It happens in fashion, happens in auto design, happens in architecture.
Yep.
When someone's doing something that's completely different, how it's like, how long can you keep this up? But it's been like 6 years or 10 years of them doing this. So like,
Right.
it's so cool to see that kind of expression come through and bring some comedy back because, and I know this is not the point of your question, one of the hardest things post-COVID is that things like music and entertainment have been commoditized, right? We have
Yes.
TikTok, we have
Yes.
Instagram, we scroll. Now it's cool to lip sync jokes and call them their own trends, and no one buys a ticket to anything anymore. It's like,
Right.
hey man, I got a new comedy show. Send me a link. Like, brother,
Right.
I'm outside. You can blame the economics of things, you can blame
Right.
the apps of things, but the idea of no one to invest. But Josh has this stuff on YouTube, but I can guarantee you, if he went on the road today, his approach is so novel that someone may say, I gotta see if he could do this in person. I gotta check this out.
Yeah.
That to me is amazing.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you that's exactly what happened because I started watching him on YouTube. Then he was in Dayton, which is about an hour west of us. We went to see him last year. He'll be here in Columbus next week. We're going to see him again. So like it's exactly what you're saying. It's like we just his it's so engaging and entertaining that like I'll watch him every night on YouTube and still go see him.
We need that. We need people to get people outside. That's like the best thing.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So getting a little changing this up a little bit and getting a little serious, there was a health scare that forced you to see risk completely differently overnight. So can you take us inside that shift and what did the safe corporate path look like for you before? And then what did it look like the moment after?
Yeah, let's keep it serious. I almost died, y'all. This is what I was very, very heavy. The way it is, I was very, very heavy, and I was a fat kid. I was a fat adult. I had dreams of having my own late night variety show, not necessarily talk for a late night variety show. I grew up in Leno. Parents came to the country during Carson's era, so I knew what I wanted to do, and I also knew that I had to like look a certain way. You don't get to be on TV a certain way. And of course, I wanted to date girls. Girls make the world go round. So I lost a bunch of weight. I lost 150 pounds on the Subway diet, the sandwich diet. I can't admit that now because the guy who did it originally is in jail.
Well, that part. But hey, congratulations to you.
Hey, give it up. And so when I lost the weight naturally, but I had loose skin. So skin has an X amount of elasticity. Basically, medically speaking, my stomach was pregnant for 16 years. There was no bounce back for that. So I had to get the skin removed. And when I did, I had a complication, and I'm getting into like the weeds here, but most people get sutures with like twine, right? They get like little thread. My sutures were glued, so they were fused together and glued from the inside out to keep the scars as smooth as possible. A lot of elective procedures that way. After my surgery, my suture line began to rip open. It was about a 4-inch long, 2-inch wide gash on my right side. And I was bleeding out on the third day after surgery, after I was trying to recover. My mom came out from New York to help me, tend to me. She was a retired nurse. And I always tell the story. I say it so many times, it's not scary, but it kind of is. So your blood is warmer and stickier than you think it is. It's gross. It's like a horror movie. I'm looking at my mom, trying to hold it down, trying to get recall our doctor, the plastic surgeon. He's like, I can't help you. I can only deal with sterile sites and environments. That's no longer sterile. You have to call the emergency room or stop the bleeding yourself. Mom is like, this cut's too big to move you because it was on the side of my body. I just had ab surgery, so I couldn't twist away. And if you ever were a caretaker, if you ever were a nurse, if you ever were a doctor, there's a certain tone that people have when it's over, right? Yeah. So I can't see it. I'm like, Mom, what's going on? She goes, I think it opened up. Which the way she said it was like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm going to die because of elective procedure. I could have been happy with my folds of skin and just, I don't know, duct tape them together. But my stupid me had to go out and do this. And so I had a bunch of small regrets. I always say, I wish I kissed more girls. I wish I had more money. But the big 2 regrets I had, which is kind of weird to think about at the time, was I never rode a motorcycle. And I never had a chance to go on stage and try comedy. And so where we're trying to hold this from bleeding, I'm on the couch now, just to give you a bit of a context here. I can't lay on my back because the cut is on my right side of my body, but I can't lay on my stomach because I had ab surgery. So I'm literally on on one cheek, my left cheek, holding the right cheek up and engaging the core I just had a surgery on. And I said, if I survive this
Wow.
tonight, I'm going to try comedy, but I'm okay if I pass. It was like, I was freaking out to the point where I wasn't. I was like,
Yeah.
well, this is what I get. I wake up the next day and everything congealed. It congealed. It took about 2 or 3 weeks for the stuff to heal the skin back. And I took that as a sign. And I took my first comedy class 6 months after that when I was fully healed and recovered. So
you don't, I mean, you don't know me, but I have cancer and I've been re-diagnosed 4 different times. But let me tell you though, you're on the right track because you're recognizing the stuff you might have missed, and you're going to live a fuller and a more fulfilled life because of that incident. And I'm so glad you're taking that opportunity to go out there and do the comedy and ride your motorcycle and do those things, because I know for myself, I might not have made a podcast. I might not have made decisions to go back to school if I didn't have these scares in my life to motivate me to get to living. I think what they say in Shawshank,
get to living or get to dying.
It's like, I'm getting to living, man. I don't care how much time I got left. So I'm proud of you for taking that stance and doing your thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm proud of you too. The thing I always go is Ian Fleming, right? A man only lives twice: once when he's born, and once when he stares death in the face. And you're absolutely right. Like it really. And I was 29 at the time, so I was 29. I had lived some life, but like not a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. So no, dude, keep on living, brother. For sure.
Yeah. Our oldest child is 29, so that boggles my mind. So yeah, I'm so glad you're doing well and much better now. And I would love to, because a lot of comedians, they usually take something that was dark in their life and they use it in their comedy. So when you got to the stage 6 months after you healed and you were in comedy, what were some of your jokes that you were thinking about? Were they about this experience, or how did you come up with your sets?
I crack up because I had not talked about that night in a comedic standpoint until very, very late in my career. Okay. And then even then people hated it. They're like, I thought you died. Why'd you call the cops? And it's like, okay, I didn't. But was it funny? Okay. But at the time when I started doing comedy, I had all the stories of being a fat person. And I still have those jokes. And I'm not knocking that because that's my perspective. But you also know a mark of an amateur is when people talk about themselves, the way they do it. You know, you ever watch like those YouTube reels, like, yep, so I'm left-handed, and it's like, oh, whatever. But I was in a class that had so many guys who were fat, and credit to me as an entertainer, when we had our graduation show, and I was like, oh man, I am on the same show with these people. I can't do jokes about that. So I had to like table that the first couple of years. And I was so glad because by the time the third guy got off stage and be like, so anyway, I'm fat. People were like, oh, we're done with this. And I was like, ha my jokes are about student loans. In fact, my first bit was if Sally Mae was my pimp. Right? I was like, Sally will call me up every month and be like, hey man, you a little light on this month's cut. I'm like, no, Sally, stop. That was my first ever bit because it was really affecting me at the time. That wasn't anything weight related. So I got to do that weight stuff later on. And I'm so glad that wasn't the first thing I got to cover because I had a better sensibility to go through what that means to be in a society where we're so look-based.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I see that a lot of times. Because you got to think about when you mention that about the comedians, you know, like the Chris Farleys of the world or the John Candys of the world, and you know, or what was the one, Louis? What is his name? Louis Anderson.
Louis Anderson.
Yeah, like you know, they were amazing and super funny, but then their life was so short. It was so short comparatively, and it might have been all health challenges. I don't know, but that those are things that I think about a lot. So on twofold, I'm glad that you are stepping out and you did what you needed to do for yourself to feel better, but then also you didn't let it be just a crutch for you, that was your only joke, that you're a one-trick pony, as they say. You were bringing real life things that people could relate to, especially student loans, boo, because I had them too, and I understand. And honey, she had me pimped out. Let me tell you, Sally Mae.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
she had me pimped out, honey. She was Bishop Don Juan all day long.
Want to buy that house? Come on.
Listen, it's so true. It's so true. So when you got on that first stage, you know, one of the things that's interesting, you were at the Comedy Store. So for people who don't understand how big that is, that's a big deal because there's a lot of very famous comedians who got their start there and did a lot of things there. But when you went after a comic who got booed off. So I would really love to say, how did that moment teach you how fear looks from the stage versus how it looks from the audience. Because I mean, I can see people doing something, you're like, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. But then now you're the one on stage like, ooh, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah. Have you seen the original movie Man on Fire with Denzel Washington?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, so keep that in mind real quick. So taking a step back, I was going to go to Comedy Store. You're right, it's very hollow ground. Chappelle did the Bird Equanimity up there, the small room, the belly room. I wasn't nervous, but a friend wanted to come, and so I invited her on a private Facebook group because I can get her address or the address of the place. I didn't realize it was public, and so 18 of my friends showed up. So that made me nervous of seeing, oh man, it's my first time doing something. I'm okay with it not being good, but now I got my friends there being like, man, that wasn't good. So
Yeah.
the guy before me was in my class, and he made a mistake is that he had this bit about being a rocket scientist, but I thought was kind of funny enough, but he got nervous about whether that's going to work and try to do new material
Oh.
that night. And it didn't work because he didn't have a chance to do feedback. We're not really that professional to write stuff or anything like that. So I'm behind him and I'm like, oh man, like how do you get booed at a class show? Like, how's that even possible? Like, this wasn't like the Apollo. Like, my gosh. And I'm sitting there and I'm nervous, but then my brain went back to the scene in Men on Fire, the original one, because I know there's like the reboot now,
Yeah.
where Denzel is John Creasy, Denzel's character, is trying to teach Pia how to swim off the blocks and to not make her fear the gun. And she goes, when that gun goes off, she goes, I feel free. So I'm backstage, in the green room, and all I heard was, please welcome Flo. And then I don't remember anything else.
Wow.
I remember running out there. I've watched our first show 100 times, but I don't remember anything. It was like, you went out there, I felt the gun. I remember people thinking that, I remember being someone in the back being like, Sally Mae's my pimp too, but that was it. I went back and then I was like, oh man, that's when you know it was chosen, right? Like I didn't see myself as a stand-up comedian. I wanted to be a late night variety show host, but I did comedy because I couldn't sing nor dance. But the actual comedy thing at the time was meant for me. And I don't want to put a downer on this, but the day after we had lost Robin Williams due to death by suicide. So I always felt like a weird kind of like, it's not connection, but like it was almost like, man, this gift I got from comedy was something that was given to this person as well, you know, and me made the most out of it. Why not me?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that so much. And I felt that I'm a performer myself as well. And I know that very feeling that sometimes I feel like I blacked out and something happened. And I'm like, whoa, it's over? What happened? I don't remember any of it.
And you at home in your robe, like, oh dang, like what?
Exactly. How did I get here? What is happening? So yeah, that's very, very real for me. That is 100% real. So you wrote a book. Is this correct?
I wrote many books, yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to hear more about your book because what I understand is that your book puts failures on the page in print. And so instead, including a business that didn't work out. And so why do we treat the messy middle as something to hide versus just another perspective on the same story? Because I've seen people do that all the time.
No, for sure. Graduation day, my 7th book, first memoir, came from when I graduated undergrad, being like, you know, our undergrad had the worst commencement speaker. Like Oprah's done colleges, Conan O'Brien, Obama, like Will Smith, and we got a dude from Walmart telling us about trying really hard. So the idea it came up during COVID, and I said, if I ever wrote a memoir, I want to be able to give college me a field guide of what life really is like. And yeah, try real hard and making good friends, things you hear, platitudes are platitudes for a reason. They do have some truth to them, but like actual, like, hey man, make that business, launch that business, and have it fail. And so during that time, I had a notebook business. It was called New Amsterdam because a lot of my comedy friends, my rap friends, would write still their notes instead of their apps. So I said, I want to have a high-end stationery brand like Moleskine. It didn't work out for a bunch of reasons. The investment kind of fell through, but I had the domain names and intellectual property. And so for the longest time, it was my biggest shame because I put in $5,000 of my own money to make it work. I had never made that risk before and have it fail so quickly. But then knowing what that meant, and I was like, okay, well, how do I turn this to my biggest achievement? I go back to The Rock when he had $7 in his pocket. He named this company $7 Entertainment. Now now he has too much money. Now he's in the store doing skincare. He got tequila. Like, bro, like, give me a job, man.
Listen, facts, brother, facts.
You know, but I twisted it that way. So I became the name of my media brand. Like, so my podcast is New Amsterdam Radio. My business is New Amsterdam Entertainment. Everything has it there because it was my biggest failure, but it was also my biggest swing for the fences. So it's something I've gotten pride in over time. It took me a long time to get over that, like, shame of that failure.
Yeah.
You know, no one jumps on a project. Everyone wants a discount. Everyone doesn't quite see the vision. You tell them, I'll show you, you'll see. In your mind, you do. And it doesn't work. It's like, so how's that brand, bro? But now I can be like, look at this. It's this, that, and that.
I love that. I love that so much. I do a lot of work with corporations, and we often have that conversation around, why don't you talk about the failures? Talk about the things that you learned and how it made you better and stronger. You know, if you were just quote unquote succeeding all the time, you know, first of all, you get a little bit egotistical and prideful. But when you get that humility, a little bit of something didn't work out, but it helps shift your perspective anyway, and maybe the actions that you do. And it will, I think, greater success comes from that, honestly.
Yeah, I'll say so too. Because I didn't think a media platform would be the results of it. But at the same time, like, you never know where it's going to go. You know?
Yeah, for certain, for sure. So one more question for you, and I want to get to, you know, how people can get in touch with you. But I heard you were a diehard Nets fan. So I guess you have a lot of practice seeing the same season two different ways, right? So heartbreak and hope. So what has that taught you about patience in your own career comeback?
Man, it's a good question because, like, I'm also a Mets fan, and they have way more promise because they invest in the team and then they lose.
Yeah.
So it's like two different things. Sports are a hard thing, man, because in theory you can get off the bus anytime you want to, and people do, and people love winners, and the people that win the games. But when you align yourself to something you really believe in, and there's days where I believe in the New York Mets more than I believe in myself. When there is some success there, you're like, oh man, it feels even sweeter. So I say long haul, there's something to be said and digging down and going for the long haul. But at the same time, you're not saving lives. If you go out there and you miss 2 auditions, it's not the end of the world. There's always next season. If you have a show and everyone's like, send me a link, bro. It's not the end of the world. There's always next season. You know, if you had this idea for this cookbook and you spent 5 years sourcing the recipes and it wasn't AI, you crafted it top to bottom and only 2 people came out to your book signing, that's 2 more than 0. There's always next season.
Yep. I love that. It's almost a bit of optimism with realism put together, but you still take the action to get to that. I call that manifestation, and I love that. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Well, Flobo, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more? And are you have any upcoming shows that people can be a part of besides sending a link to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yo, give me a link, bro. Flobito.com is the main website, but I also have a comedy and sports blog, new content every week. It's called justasandwich.com. And I don't know if you see me on the baseball sphere, I'm actually part of the Black Baseball Mixtape family of contributors. So check out blackbaseballmixtape.substack.com.
I love all of that, and you were such a delight. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and giving us all a little bit of hope of thinking about what is it that we want to do differently in our life and our journey and what's holding us back. So I love this so much. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Brian, can you tell people how they can get in touch with us?
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or you can email us at embwpodcast@gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We will see y'all next time. Have a good one. Bye.
See you.